Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another session of the Work Better Club. My name is Swapnil Kamat. Today, we're here to talk about overcoming the dilemma of decision making, or in simpler words, I don't know why we've named this title like this, which is Overcoming the Dilemma of Decision Making. But essentially, what we're going to talk about is how do you get better at decision making? That's what we're going to talk about. When I typically start most topics, I keep talking about how interesting these topics are, right? Because and I'm not kidding when I say that I genuinely find each one of these topics very interesting, very useful. That's the reason why I'm in this business. That's the reason why we do what we do, because I genuinely believe that the knowledge that we give is extremely important knowledge. These are extremely important skills that people need to have to succeed in their careers, to succeed in their profession, to succeed in their work life. And a lot of these skills are also extremely important to live a good kind of personal life as well, right? And we genuinely believe that these soft skills, some people call these business skills today, are actually some of the most important things. And I'm sure so many of y'all kind of think and wish that a lot of these things were taught to us when we were children, when we were much younger. And if you have children currently, we always hope that a lot of these things are taught to our children, so that they can actually acquire skills, acquire knowledge that they can use in the real world, right? So exactly in the same vein, this is a topic, the decision making is a topic which is extremely important. I can't kind of overemphasize the importance of the topic of decision making. And let me start by also mentioning that doing a 1 hour or 1.5 hour kind of discussion on the topic of decision making is never good enough time for this topic, right? This is an extremely complex topic. This is an extremely detailed oriented topic. But we're just going to be sharing a few things today that we think are important. We don't even want to, one of the things that we don't want to give is too much, so that you can't digest it. It becomes too much for you to digest. So we're going to try to ensure that we give you enough that will help you think about this subject better, and actually help you take better decisions, whether it comes to your personal or professional life. Right now, yeah, let's quickly, let me put this, and then I'll share a few other things. Is most of these things by now. Give me a big yes in the chat box if you can hear me clearly and if you can see the screen, so I know that we're on and there's no problem on that front. Okay, I see a lot of yeses there. Use the chat box if I ask you a question, and if you need to share something. If you have any questions, the Q&A box is the way to go. And at the end of this session, there will be an assessment link that will be shared. If you get 70% or more, you get a certificate, right? So those are some of the ground rules of this session, right? Yeah. Now, before I get to, I've blanked the screen out for a minute. So your life, right, is nothing but, in a way, an interplay, right? So let me kind of, so life is nothing but an interplay between things that are in your hand and things that are out of your hand, right? Very simple. So it's an interplay between things that are in your hand, and then there are a bunch of things that are out of your hand, right? So the things that are out of your hand, we typically call luck. So that's what this is, right? That these are things that you cannot out of your hand, or these are things that are out of your control in a way. And there are a whole lot of things that are kind of out of your control. Now, there are a whole lot of things, however, in your life, whether it's your you know, just a minute. I'm going to do this differently. I'm going to take one slide. I'm going to unhide it and I'm going to draw on this. Right. Okay. So yeah, sorry. I was saying life, things that are in your control, things that are out of your control, right, or out of your hand. This is what we call luck very often. Now, in the things that, and this is when we talk about life, you're talking about your career or your professional life, and then you talk about your kind of personal life, right? So this is two big spectrums of what your life is typically about, right? Now, the things that are in your control, if you have to boil it down to really one thing, when we say things that are in our control, it is basically the decisions that we make, right? So these are the things which are in our control, right? And you can be especially after the age when you're an adult, and that's what, like, in simple words, that's what adulthood basically means, right? If you think about what adulthood, probably, when you're 18 years old, you can stretch that to kind of probably 21 years old. Adulthood basically is nothing but, you get the right, in a way, to take your decisions, right? Adulthood is nothing but the right to take your decisions, because when you're 14 years old, or when you're not an adult, a lot of times your kind of, parents or or somebody else is taking the decisions on your behalf. But if you're an adult, and if somebody says I'm an adult but yet I'm not in charge of my own decisions, that means you never became an adult, right? You're still a child if you can't take your own decisions after a certain point of time. And if you say, no, but somebody forces me to take decisions, oh, I have to take this decision because of my mother, my father, society, they're all rubbish like that people talk, that means you're not an adult yet. Because the very definition of being an adult is your ability to take your own decision, right? That's what you need to be able to do. It's like, in a way, voting, right? You're given the right to vote after you're 18, because they're saying, okay, now you can take your own decision, so you can take the decision of who you think should be in the government as well, right? And that's what, in the way, voting is, right? So right to take your decisions. And if you think of your life that is within your control, when we talk about control, we mean nothing but the decisions that we make. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. So if you ask me, and this is this is a famous kind of line of phrase by Tony Robbins, where he says, decisions make your destiny, right? Decisions make your destiny, right? And if in life we get good at taking decisions, if we get good at taking decisions, we are likely to have a good life, right? And if we are not good at taking decisions, which means that, out of 100 decisions we take, more often than not, if you take good decisions or the right decisions, you are likely to have a good life, right? But out of 100 decisions, more often than not, you take the wrong decisions or bad decisions, then you're likely to have a very bad life, right? So the decisions that you take have a kind of direct impact on your destiny, a direct impact on your life. And besides the decisions that you take, like we said, the other thing that comes into play is the luck, right? But that's a factor which is out of control, so you can't really do anything about it. But the decisions that we take are always under our control. Right now, when we are talking about this subject of decision making, let me try to make one thing clear, that anything that you're going to learn on this topic, right, and just trust me when I say that I still don't consider myself an expert, at teaching this subject, because although I've taught this subject a lot, I think there's a whole lot that I still need to learn in terms of teaching the subject of decision making. But I have read a hell of a lot on this topic. I've studied this topic in great detail. And however much you study this topic, it's almost impossible for you to take all decisions in your life correctly, right? Or in your work correctly. It's impossible to do that. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason. And the reason behind that, why you can't take all decisions in your life correctly or perfectly or as well as you can, is because, first of all, we are constantly, while we are awake, at all points of time, constantly while we are awake, we are constantly making different decisions, right? So a lot of us may think that, oh, whether I should buy a car or not is a decision, right? That's one big decision. Yes, but what time to wake up every day, is a decision in itself. To go for coffee or not with a friend is a decision to make. How much you study for an exam is a decision that you make. Whether you go to the gym every day or not, you're making a certain decision on a day-to-day basis, whether you're going to go to the gym or not, do this or not. So, like, decision making is what we're doing practically, like, every minute of the day, right? The decision of, am I going to be on my phone, or am I going to be doing something more productive, right? It's literally, decision making is what you do every minute of your day in some way or the other, right? So as far as decisions are concerned, you're constantly taking either very big decisions, right? Very, very big decisions. And these big decisions, like I said, could be around, whether I should get married, whether I should buy a house, right? What, should I go for science, commerce, or arts, right? During that time, should I, what should I study, what's the first job that I should take, whether I should change my job, whether I should start a business, whether I should, if you're married, whether I should have children, right? So on and so forth. So a lot of these decisions come in this category of kind of big decisions that we take. But on the other side, we take a lot of small but yet important, there's small yet important decisions on a day-to-day basis, right? you know Whether you go to the gym every day or not, how whether you kind of read every day or not, how much time you spend on social media or not, how you decide to behave with your loved ones. We can go on and on and all, right? Because each one of those things that we do are also decisions that we make. So, you know our life is nothing but a process of constant decisions that we are making, right? Our life is nothing but a process of constant decisions that we're making, whether we realize them or not. Because a lot of decisions, also things that just do without much thought, are often called habits, right? They're habits that you do, like brushing your teeth as soon as you wake up in the morning, right? That's a habit. It's still a decision, but now it's become so habituated that you don't need to think about it too much, right? You don't need to spend too much of energy or not, right? Small decisions as to what you decide to wear when you go out, right? We can go on and on with this, but life is nothing but a kind of set of constant decisions that you're making, right? And again, going back to that same time, because there are constant decisions that you're making, if you improve your ability to make good decisions, right, you will naturally improve the quality of your life, right? You will naturally improve the quality of your life, right? Now, this said, if you actually think about it, and I'm sure a lot of y'all that are listening into this class, I'm sure if you're sensible enough people, you would agree with the couple of the few things that I've just spoken about, right? You'll be like, of course this is right. And you may, of course, this at some level, so it's not like you don't know what I'm trying to tell you, right? Of course you know this at some level. But classes like this often bring the importance of the subject to the fore. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm bringing the importance of this to the fore to you. But I'm sure a lot of y'all would agree, and tell me if you agree or not by giving me a big yes. You would agree that something like how to take good decisions um, is something that should have been taught to us through school, through college, right? It should have been, they could have, if they had forgotten to kind of take one subject during school and college, it would have been much better. And if they had devoted those same resources and time to just teaching everybody in terms of how do you take good decisions. Because obviously, may not remember everything in geography or some other subjects, but the thing that you use on a day-to-day basis are decisions. The thing that you need to use on a day-to-day basis, even time management for that matter, right? We've done some sessions on time management. And managing your time is nothing but deciding how to use your time, right? Should I use my time on this or this, or what should I? So much of time management is around decision making, right? So exactly like, life is nothing but time. In a way, life is nothing but the quality of decisions that you make. um, and of course, you would know this, right? You know this 100%, because all of us have seen this in amongst our close family. All of us have seen this in our, not just close, our extended family, our extended friends. We've seen this, that there are so many people that, what the term is given. Let me just kind of share that with you, right? Okay, let me ask you a question. I want to do a quick kind of quiz with you, right? Let me open the chat box, and then I want to do a quick quiz before we get to. Yeah, agree, good, thank you. That makes sense, right? So what a person that is known, don't go to Google and check, give me an answer immediately in the chat box, okay? Keep your hands, type it out quickly. So what is a person that is known to take good decisions? What is the term given to that person? That's somebody who's known to take good decisions. What is that person? What is the term? We call him a dash person. Intelligent, okay? Come on, good try. Come on, go for it. Okay, it's a dash person, and it's a four. Ah, there it is, Suresh. Thank you very much. Yes, it's called a wise person, right? A wise person. It's not about intelligent. You have a lot of people that are extremely intelligent. And you know this, right? Now, when you think about it, you know that there are a lot of people that you may know in your life that are very intelligent, but still are not very good at decision making, right? They don't tend to take the right decisions. They're very intelligent, but still they don't take the right decisions. And on the other side, a person that takes good decisions, right? So Natrajan has used a word which is called a decisive person. That's another word. You know what decisive means, right? If you know the opposite of what decisive means, you'll indecisive, right? Indecisive means a person that does not take decisions out of fear, right? He does not take decisions more often than not out of fear or whatever, but he's an indecisive person, cannot take decisions. And it's very important for us to be decisive so that we take decisions. This is more about on the area of taking decisions or not taking decisions, but quality of decisions taken, right, is more about wise, right? Or the word given to it is kind of, this is a person that has a lot of wisdom. So if you even check on Google later on as to what wisdom or a wise person means, it means your ability to take, good decisions in your life, right? And that's why, understand this thing. If you want to have a good life, right, if you want to have a very good life, it's okay if you're not that intelligent, but what's really important is that you're a wise person and you can take good decisions, because all of y'all would agree with me, right, that the quality of decisions is essentially the quality of your life, right? And if we're bad with that in both our personal and professional lives, we are going to kind of suffer a whole lot, and that's what we don't want to do. So I'm hoping that we kind of understand in order. Well, okay, let me put it this way, right? In order for a person to get good at decision making, the first thing which is important is for him to know exactly what we discussed, right? Which is to know that decisions equals your destiny, right? That's the first thing, that if I were you, that's what I would have written down, right? My decisions equal my destiny, because the only other thing that is going to play a role in my destiny is luck, which is out of my control. But decisions are in my control. Decision of whether I'll work hard or not, decision of whether my attitude will be good or not, decision of what time I'm going to make up, decision of what my attitude is going to be, decision of where, all these are decisions that you're making, right? So you're going to have decisions, and then you're going to have luck. Luck is out of our control, so let's forget luck for a minute, right? But again, then it boils down to decisions. So the first thing that if I were you, that's what I would make a note of: decisions equals my destiny. The second thing I would really think of from what we've learned so far is to say, you know what, I am actually taking decisions all the time. Some of these decisions are very conscious decisions that are taking. A lot of these are very unconscious, without a lot of processing, decisions that I'm making. But I am, whether I know it or not, taking a lot of decisions from the, what time I wake up onwards is a kind of decision that I'm making, right? And literally, I can tell you that, currently I'm in, of course, my beautiful hometown of Goa. But in Bombay, when I have to go and go for meetings or go for a workshop or something like that, and you put the alarm on, and say I put it on for 6:50. If I put the alarm on, and like the minute the alarm rings, the process of decision making starts. Right now, am I going to spring out of bed at 6:50 in the morning, or am I going to put the alarm on snooze? My decision making literally starts the minute I wake up. What am I going to do? Am I going to, and depending on the decision that I take, then things start getting affected, depending on the decision. So that's the second big thing that I want you to keep in mind, is to say that, listen, I am taking decisions all the time. From now on, what you need to do is, I think each one of us need to know that. You need to know that that has an impact, and therefore grow your awareness towards the decisions that you're taking at all points of time, whether they're the small decisions or the big decisions that you're taking, right? So that is another kind of, I think, a very important point to keep in mind. And I think the third one to keep in mind before we go on is to say that, I think a point that we discussed, what's more important in life is intelligence versus wisdom. I think most of y'all would agree that wisdom is much more important, because way too many of us have seen extremely intelligent people take very, very bad decisions. And we've seen probably people that don't, intelligence is nothing but IQ, right? In a way, your cognitive ability is what intelligence is. And you could have people that probably weren't the smartest people, right, but yet live beautiful lives both professionally and personally, because they just kept taking good decisions one after the other, right? They continued doing that, and they're living great lives. And that's what we need to aim for, that's what we need to get to, and that's what we need to aspire for. It's a very, very good thing to aspire and do that. And the good part is about decision making, that if you learn a few things even that we're going to talk about today, it can help you a whole lot in terms of bettering your ability to take those decisions, right? So that's something which is possible. Okay, now let's just look at a few things here. What is decision making? We know this, but it's always good to put a nice definition to this, right? The process of selecting a choice from a range of possible options or solutions with the goal of achieving a very specific objective in the end, right? So that's what decision making is: the process of selecting a choice from different options to meet a certain objective that you have, right? I heard this a very nice definition. I really like this kind of definition of it, right? So it's a good thing to make a note of. A good decision making should eliminate detrimental options and lead to favorable outcomes, right? That's what we need to do. Warren Buffet and his partner, he has a partner called Charlie Munger. um, they have this very nice quote where they say in life, it's more important not to be stupid than to be smart. Okay, I'll repeat that. They'll say in life, it's more important not to be stupid than to be smart, right? So they say if you're not smart is okay, but at least don't be stupid, right? And typically when you talk about don't be stupid, you're saying don't take wrong decisions all the time, because we know it's not possible for us to take perfect decisions, right decisions all the time, right? But they're saying don't take wrong decisions all the time, because if you keep taking wrong decisions, your life will keep going in a kind of spiral and keep going down, right? So that's another beautiful thing to remember. You don't need to be super smart, just don't be stupid, right? And a lot of not being stupid revolves around eliminating detrimental options that you may choose, and what you want is to lead for favorable outcomes, right? Lead to a favorable outcome. That's what you want your decisions to do for you broadly, if you think of it. Okay, now there are, and this is again huge area, right? So intuition versus reasoning. Decisions can be made through either an intuitive or a reasoned process, or a combination of both. Intuition is using your gut feeling, right? It is a combination of past experiences and your personal values. It is not always based on reality, only on your perceptions, right? So a lot of times, so when it comes to decision making, we keep talking about my gut is telling me this, right? My instinct is telling me this, my gut is telling me this, my natural thought process is telling me this. And trust me when I say that, anybody says, oh, my gut is telling me this, so I should do this, is stupid, right? Because that's not the way you go about taking decisions, especially important decisions. Your decision making process often should be a mix of the two things, right? You need to be able to have a reasoned process, and then you also need to consult your gut or intuition, right? Or your gut feeling. You need to do both. What most people tend to do is they say, oh, this is my gut feeling, I'm going to go with this, right? And often those are terrible decisions that they end up making. And on the other side, a lot of people just use a lot of reason while taking decisions, and don't trust their gut along. Even that's a bad thing, right? So often what you need to have is a combination and an ability to have a reasoned, rational decision making, and also consult your gut feeling, which you are, because often your gut feeling on stuff is nothing but a combination of your past experiences that you have towards a certain thing, which is throwing up immediate answers for you in some way or the other, right? So that's what your gut feeling is. But I think, again, one of the thoughts that I would take away from this session, if you're paying attention, is that this thing which a lot of people talk about is that, oh, my instinct and my gut feeling and my intuition is how I take all my decisions. And that shouldn't be the case, right? You need to use both if you want to get better at decision making, right? Now, reasoning is using facts and figures to make decisions. That's what you do. You kind of put stuff down and do it. Intuition is generally more appropriate when decisions is simple or needs to be made quickly. That's when you can use your intuition. And more complicated decisions tend to require a formal, structured approach of doing it, usually involving both intuition and your reasoning, right? That's what it will take. um, a good, I think, two decisions in our life are decisions which are quite, I think they're life's most important decisions to take, right? So one, I think, decision to take in life is whether you will get married or not, right? Because that's the first decision you should take, right? Most people don't even think about it, but it is a decision in the end. Am I going to get married or not? And then once you if you say, oh, I am going to get married, then the second big decision comes as to, oh, who should I get married to, right? And again, if you're going to be good at taking decisions, you need to use both faculties, right? You need to use your ability to reason, right? And use formal, structured approach in terms of thinking about that situation. And you also need to use your intuition, because, like they say, while on paper everything could seem perfect, but your intuition could be telling you something else, and you also need to give that some weightage when you're taking decisions, right? So that's what I mean by using some logic and using some intuitions. On the other side, just using your intuition is saying, no, I'm getting a very good feel from this person that I met over coffee for 1 hour. I'm getting a very good feel. chalo, come on, let's get married, right? So now that doesn't mean like those kind of relationships don't work, right? Because a relationship working or not is often a 50-50% chance, right? So even that can work. It's like a coin toss, right? A coin toss, what happens, if you, sometimes it'll come head, sometimes it'll be tails. So that's what it is. You can't have any reasoning there. You just call whatever comes to your head. Sometimes it works out, sometimes you doesn't, but there's no science to winning a coin toss, right? So if you kind of take decisions like this over coffee, saying, yeah, this seems great, come on, I'm getting a good feel, let's get married, you've not used your other reasoning process which is there. And that's what you need to do to increase the chances of you being able to take good decisions. You can't guarantee that you'll use your reasoned approach, intuition, and the marriage will be perfect, right? That's not what I'm trying to say, but it'll improve the chances of you taking better decisions. And that's what we need to do, because we started this session by saying you can't ever get all your decisions right, you can't ever get all your decisions perfect, right? That can never happen. But the more you improve your chances of doing it, the better chance you have of doing it, right? So I think besides the takeaways that I just mentioned so far, this would be another big takeaway for me from this session of what we should do. Right now, besides the thing that I mentioned, I want y'all to quickly put down why are decision making skills so important for us, right? I don't want you covering all the stuff that I covered. I want some new input to come from y'all. So, yes, ladies and gentlemen, please use the chat box. I'm giving you three to 4 minutes to put your answers now. Your time starts now. Okay, let's look at some of the answers that are coming by. To get desired outcome in the most effective manner, to move forward with clarity and aim, is what Bindu is saying. Ganesh says live meaningful and a purposeful life, have work life integration, achieve highest potential of life to grow. Okay, good. Nice, some nice points. Let's have some more people write in. Why is decision making skills important for us, right? For those of you all who are parents on this group, right? I'm a parent myself, so I hope more than anything else, any other skill that my child has, I hope he has the skill of making good decisions, right? That's the skill that I want. If I could bless him with one skill, that's the skill that I want him to do, because in a way every minute you're taking a decision on different stuff. And And again, you know that the quality of decisions is the quality of your life. The big decisions, like I mentioned, have such a big impact on your life. The small ones also have such a big impact on your life, right? You could take a big decision of saying that, okay, in this new year of 2021, I am going to start going to the gym. You could take that big decision. After that, you could back that decision up by the action of paying the gym membership as well, right? But then every day of your life you need to take the decision of whether to go or not to the gym, right? Just taking that one big decision is not enough. You need to take that small decision as well of are you going to back it up in the right way? And again, that is so tough, right? But the quality of choices, the quality of decisions that you make is the quality of your life, um, in a way, right? Now let me share another thing with you till we get a few more answers, right? I hope one of the points that you take back from this session is the point of saying being an adult. The very definition of being an adult is you being able to take your own decisions, right? That is the definition of being an adult. You can't be forced into taking decisions by anyone. If you are, you're not behaving as an adult, you're still behaving like a child. I hope you all take that, because I have so many people that talk to me and talk like their life is not in their hands and their life is still in the hands of somebody else. Sure, you need to consult other people. Sure, if you're in a relationship, if you're married, you need to consult your partner while taking certain big decisions, right? But at least it's important that you have a solid say in those decisions, right? It can't be like all the decisions that you take are out of your hand. So know, because decisions equal your destiny, know that you are in charge of your own destiny. My grandfather, who was a philosopher and writer, he had this quote where he said, you are the architect of your own destiny, right? You are the architect of your own destiny. Now, the other thing, right? If you if you are on this class today, right? If you are one of, I don't know, 22 people are on this class today. If you are on this class today, that means you've had access to the basics of life already, right? That means you went to school, you went to college, right? You went to all these things. So you got those basics that millions of people on this planet didn't have. Whatever position you are in your life, and I don't just mean your career, right? Whatever position you are in your life, in your personal and professional lives, is in a way your doing, right? Is a result of the choices and decisions that you make. And until we have a deep understanding of that, right, that whatever position that I am in my professional life and my personal life is largely a result of the decisions and choices that I have made. Unless you take full responsibility for that and acknowledge that and understand that, it's not going to be possible for you to have a better quality of life until you do that, right? Until that acknowledgement is there. Because so many of us kind of blame the current space or place that we're in on so many factors that are beyond them, right? And sure, luck plays a factor, like I keep discussing. There could be certain factors that you may not be for and still have to take because of certain compulsions. But by and large, right, by and large, where you are in your life is the quality of decisions and choices, which also says another thing, ladies and gentlemen, which also means that you can improve the quality of your life by taking better decisions from this point onwards, right? Because no matter what the past, you can always begin again, right? So you can begin this day, this year, this post pandemic time by improving the decisions on a day-to-day basis, and therefore improving your life, right? So yeah, I haven't got those many answers from people, but I'm still going to move on from this point, right? Why hone our decision making skills? Saves time, allows you to make better use of resources, increases your productivity. So these are largely points on the work front, and facilitates effective management and innovation. What can prevent effective decision making, right? What can prevent it? A whole host of factors, but we've just put down 5 here. So the number one thing that can prevent effective decision making is not enough information, too much information, right? If we take decisions without enough information, that will hamper decision making. If you wait for too much of information, often you're too late while taking decisions, or you have something which is called analysis paralysis, right? That means you get so used to just analyzing stuff that you never actually take a decision, right? And then you're known to be indecisive, right? What else can prevent effective decision making? Again, it's important for you to consult people. It's important for you to seek the counsel of other people, especially while taking important decisions. But as we know, too many cooks spoil the broth, right? If you keep taking everybody's decisions, everybody's opinions sometimes around stuff, you'll be so busy taking their opinions and not really making the right decisions that you need to make. You won't end up doing that. So the opinions and views often of too many people around stuff can be confusing in itself, and again lead to something which is called analysis paralysis, right, around stuff. When you get too emotionally attached to stuff, it's again very, very tough to take good decisions when there's too much of an emotional attachment, right? Because that's where all your biases start coming in. That's where all your, you don't have the ability then to take what is a decision which is right for the situation, right? You don't do that. And if you don't have, again, any emotional attachment toward the situation, again, that decision may, because not by no emotional attachment, you essentially mean that you don't care enough for that situation or that thing, and therefore because you don't care enough for it, maybe you'll end up taking the wrong decision, right? So too much of no information at all will lead to it. Too much information will again lead to it. Too involving too many people opinions, that will again lead to it. Being too emotionally attached will hamper good decision making. Not caring at all about a certain situation, again, will hamper good decision making, right? So these are just a few of many, many factors that hamper good decision making, right? Now, there are kind of three things that we're going to talk here, and like I started this session by saying, these three things are just a few points out of many things around decision making that we need to know. But three things is: use or practice rational thinking, right? Get into the habit of practicing rational thinking. The second thing, which is the basic of in a way decision making, is generate and evaluate your options, right? That's what you need to do. And the third thing is, seek support and advice. And even if we start doing these three things, and then the fourth thing that we're going to discuss with you is being aware of a lot of your biases that you have in your head, right? A lot of the what we call flaws in thinking that we have, and we're going to try to spend some time on that, right? Now, what is the first one? Practice or use rational thinking. So how do you get into the habit of you know doing more rational thinking? Gather information about the situation that you're in. Now, how do you gather information? Avoid making decisions based on limited knowledge, right? So that's I think one of the big keys of, it's just one, it's not the only one, by the way, all right? Because no, it's not like knowledge is the only thing that can help you make better decisions. But one of the keys of making good decisions is to have the right knowledge around that subject so that you can take the right decisions, right? What does this mean? Okay, let me give you a simple example. If you want to buy a car, unless you have the right knowledge about this subject, you don't need to have what is the perfect knowledge around this subject, but you need to have at least the right amount of knowledge for you to take that kind of a decision. And that's something that you need to do, the right knowledge around that subject, right? So if you want to buy a car, that's what you need. So avoid making decisions based on limited knowledge about that something. Critically think about what information you need, right? So avoid making decisions. So think about the information that you need around that subject. Understand the factors involved in decision making, right? And make a list of questions that you want answered. And again, you don't need to, as a starting point on anything, and that's a very, very good way of taking decisions. Say, if you're going to buy a car, if you're going to take any decisions, just before you do anything, just make a list of all the possible questions that come to your mind around that subject, right? Don't think of structure, don't think of anything else. Just think, okay, around this subject, what are all the questions that come to your mind, right? And kind of just keep writing, typing down all the questions that you have coming to your mind, and then start the process of trying to find answers connected to all those questions that you have. and that itself will improve your decision making ability, right? And one of the points that we have later is to consult or seek advice, and again that will help, right? So if you're buying a car, go talk to somebody else who knows a lot about cars, right? Now it doesn't mean that's the other thing we tend to do. You if you want to buy a car, you need to have a friend or family member, somebody that that knows about cars, right? And talk to him about it. For every decision you want to consult your mother, right? Your mother may not know anything about cars, right? Still you want to consult her for everything, right? Does that make sense that you do that? Of course it doesn't make sense that you do that, right? Your mother or your parents or your spouse will always care for your well-being. I'm sure they will care for your well-being, but they may not be the right person to go for that decision, right? It's like, you have in your company there's a finance related question, and you're going and asking it to an HR related person. HR person, that's not my area of expertise. Yeah, you ask me HR, I maybe can give you an answer on HR, but finance, you have to go to finance, right? So exactly like that don't go seeking the advice and counsel of one person for everything, unless you know that that person is really wise, a wise person. And how do you know that? You know that from does that person have a history of taking great decisions? How do you know that? Where they are in their life, right? And I don't mean just professional success. Are they are they peaceful? Are they in a good mental space in their own life? Is often a very, very good way of assessing that, right? So you could have somebody that's really wise, but if you're going to take a decision on a car, please speak to somebody that knows a bit about cars, so that more questions get generated, so that you can go and kind of research on that, and then come to a what we keep using this word, right? An informed decision. That's what you want to take, right? An informed decision. And for if you want to take an informed decision, you need information. If you want information to start with, think, what are all the questions about this subject that come to my mind that I need to kind of get answered for me to take a decision. Right? Now take time to gather information, conduct research around the factors identified, talk with involved parties, trusted stakeholders. This is the point that we were just discussing, right? That's what you need to do. um by the way, I'm going back to this point, right? I know so many people that have screwed up their lives because they seek advice of what we often call elders of any kind in the family, and those elders are giving them advice based on their understanding, right? And we blindly then take that advice, and then we end up ruining our lives, right? And that's again because we're not taking informed decisions, right? We're not doing that. And of course you can't blame them for it. They may be doing it for their well-being, but they're in no position to kind of give you advice. So seek advice from the right people about the right issues, right? That is very, very important, because in a lot of cases you will need external parties to give you some advice for you to take that decision, right? You'll need that information around it. Okay. Now what are the other thing which is around practicing rational thinking that you need to keep in mind is avoid making impulsive or emotionally charged decisions. Big 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 keep this in mind if you want to get good at decisions, right? If you're too emotionally invested, your judgment may be clouded. Making decisions when anxious, stressed, or upset will likely lead to poorer outcomes, right? Take a step back when you know you are acting out of emotion, right? So to start with, you need to have a certain amount of awareness that I'm at this point of time emotionally stressed or charged up, and you need to have this awareness. So this awareness will lead to you possibly giving some space, right? Giving yourself some time. You need to step back. This is the stepping back that you need to do. And in a way here, you need to stepping back. Space is nothing but delaying a little bit, right? And not just taking it. And then hopefully your mind should be more stable, right, before you take a decision. Because when that mind is more stable before you take that decision, right, then this decision, the chances of it being right will be much more than wrong. Okay, now if you, all of us have been young, all of us have been teenagers, all of us, so you know, right, a lot of the decisions that we take then are are often based on our raging hormones that we're making a lot of decisions, right? So you're very emotionally charged, emotionally kind of invested in certain things, and then naturally your decision making becomes more flawed than not, right? That's what ends up happening. And very often, my father used to tell me this. He would, this would, at least I don't know whether it works in the same way in India in insurance companies, but he would say that at least in Canada where he used to live, he would say that, the minute somebody got married, they would tend to become more responsible. When they had a child, they would tend to be even more responsible, right? So I don't know whether it was the car insurance or something like that. If you had to pay 100 rupees when you were a bachelor, you'd probably have to pay 90 rupees when you're married, and you'd probably have to pay 80 rupees once you have a child, right? And he was some system like that of it. I don't know how much truth is there to it, but his whole point was to say that your decision making becomes so much more rational often, and so much well thought through when you get married or when these milestones happen, because you're just feeling more responsible. So again, at any point of time where you're feeling too emotionally invested or charged, whether it's in a positive way or whether it's in a negative way, avoid taking decisions at that point of time, right? Avoid taking decisions at that point of time. At that point of time, you need to give some space, do some delaying, step back a little so that you can become more stable, right? And once you become more stable, then you will be in a better position to take that decision, right? I'm sure all of us would agree with this point of what we need to do. They say, right, never, if you get an email, never reply to that email when you're emotionally charged up about that issue, right? Don't reply to it then. Give it one day where you cool down, where you come back to your senses, and then reply to that thing, right? Because otherwise you're going to send a reply that's going to upset other one, or you're going to get into the bad books of somebody by doing that, right? So that's something, if you want to be good at emotional, ensure that you do that. I know so many people, so many of my friends, that because they couldn't do this, they take so many wrong decisions in their personal and professional life, because they keep taking decisions when they're emotionally charged. And all my friends and family members that I know that do not do this, right, and really kind of, before they take decisions, they take it from a stable space, always tend to and take better decisions. And you will know friends and family and people at office that do the same thing, right? Now, don't act impulsively. Instead, use careful, clear, rational thinking. Focus on the facts of the situation rather than your ego or your impulsive desires that you may have, right? So that's something that we just discussed. Now, give yourself time to thoughtfully make a decision. Okay, give yourself, oh my god, time is so important. So when we're talking, we spoke earlier about decisive versus undecisive. Undecisive is somebody that just does not take decisions, right, or keeps delaying decisions indefinitely. You need to take decisions, but also ensure, if you want them to be well thought through, they need to you need to give it time. Because if you don't give them time, you're not going to be able to take good decisions. When it comes to anything that you need to give yourself time, again, for those of you all who are not married, mm-mm-mm-mm, time, very important, right, in order to take good decisions. So don't be pressurized into making a decision quickly or feel obligated to decide before you're ready for it, right? Big decisions require thought and careful examination. For high stakes decisions, give yourself at least a few hours or more to make your choice. We're not talking about something which is as high stakes as getting married and stuff. Huh? We just mean typical business situations. Ensure that you're not just quickly taking decisions. Ensure that you have that time to think them through. If decisions affect your long term plans, a few days or more will give you more time to process the situation and approach it with more clarity, right? So this is what we're talking about. But ladies and gentlemen, give yourself time to thoughtfully make a decision. And of course, we're not talking about you being indecisive, right? Now, again, how do you practice rational thinking? look at the situation in both the short term and the long run, right? So this is what, in a way, when you think stuff in the long run, when you think stuff from a 360-degree angle, right, from all angles, this is what we call people that are strategic thinkers, right? And if you're a strategic thinker, you tend to take better decision making. So when you're looking at a situation both from the short term and the long term, you may be so focused on the short term problems that you don't look at the situation from a long term perspective. That's not good decision making. Being short sighted will likely have a negative impact in the long run. Consider the implications of your decisions in the long run, right? Now, so many people tend to do that, where they only concentrate on the immediate benefit, or sometimes the immediate pain, when it comes to a certain thing, and they're not really thinking of the medium or long term when it comes to certain thing, and often then they get into trouble. So you need to think both in terms of the short term and the long term while doing stuff, right? That ensure that you do that, right? So I was when creating this content, I was having a discussion with Arunima, who was working on this content, and I was just sharing with her. I said, while in today's day and age people tend to think through their decisions in a far better fashion, still the problem when it comes to decision making is underthinking about stuff versus overthinking about stuff, right? Even overthinking about stuff, again, we said, leads to analysis paralysis, but still this is the bigger problem, right? People don't think stuff through enough, and therefore they don't take informed decisions about stuff, right? And that often becomes a problem in the way they go about doing stuff, right? By the way, one of the things that can avoid indecisiveness while taking decisions is to know that is to like really have and know this belief that there are no such thing as perfect decisions, right? And secondly, not all the decisions that you're going to take are going to be right. Okay, so these are two thoughts that you always need to keep in mind, because otherwise you'll have an analysis paralysis, you will be indecisive, so not, you can't get 100% of your decisions right, and neither can you get perfection in your decisions, right? So at some point of time you have to decide and go ahead with a certain thing, because otherwise you're going to be stuck without making any decisions, and often then that will become the bigger problem. So for those of y'all who feel that, oh, I think stuff too, and maybe that's the problem, and that's because you're thinking stuff through, but you're making the other mistakes, you're looking for that perfect decision, you say, no, I have to take the perfect decision, फिर तो कभी होगा ही नहीं, right? And it could be something as simple. Often I go through that same thing while shopping, for that matter, because I'm in a way so particular about what I buy, and then I don't end up buying anything, right? um, because then I overthink that particular process of doing it, right? But at some point of time, you just need to take the decision and saying, as long as you get most of your decisions right, most of especially the big decisions right, you are likely to have a good personal or professional life, right? So that's another. If I were you, that's another thing that I'd make a note of from this session, right? Now, once point number one is basically about just bringing your attention to the fact that you need to practice rational thinking from now on, right? So that's something that you need to do from now on if you need to better the quality of your decisions. Then when it comes to the actual decision making process, what is you know this mean, right? So the first thing that people don't do is consider or generate alternatives, right? So when you consider and generate alternatives, that's when your decision making is slightly likely to be better. But if you don't generate and consider alternatives, your decision making is not going to be good, right? So um, you know like I keep coming back to car. I think this is there on the next slide, right? So make a list of possible alternatives and multiple options to your question or problem or the decision that you need to take. While some options may seem more desirable than others, it's important to assess each option carefully. So in the end, this is the crux of decision making revolves around this thing, right? So when you need to take a decision, think of all the alternatives, generate alternatives, and like the next slide will suggest, that you need to weigh the pros and cons around each one of those things, and then you come to a decision making, right? All decision making, whether they're small or big, revolve around that kind of central thought or central philosophy which is there. right? So you need to do that. So example of coming up with alternative, let's say you're deciding whether to buy a car, you have your eye on a specific make and model, however you are concerned about how to afford it. Instead of just deciding between your current car and the new one, consider alternatives like buying a different type of car that may be lower priced, or a used car, or whatever it is, right? So if you have to buy a car, first of all, you can, there's so many alternatives that you need to generate before you come up with a decision of what it is, right? So you could say, okay, my one option is new car I'll buy, or another option is used car. And if you're good at generating options, you'll say possibly no car, right? I'll only use taxi. And you'll say possibly a leased car, right? You get rental cars today as well. And if you're a good decision making, you will consider and think of, oh, what is this leased car business? Let me try to understand this leased car stuff a lot more. Okay, if I have to buy a new car, what are my different options as far as a new car is concerned, right? And then if you say, okay, if no car, what are the advantages and disadvantages of, pros and cons, advantages, cost, benefits of having no car at all? Does that bring any advantage, disadvantage? What is my life here around this thing? Okay, another thing is used car. If I buy a used car, okay, what are the advantages and the disadvantages which are there, right? And by the way, like we were saying earlier, right, that you need to have a rational decision making process, and you need to have also an intuition, right? Intuition, which is your gut feel. And this, by the way, this subject of the car is a subject which I am very, very fond of cars myself, right? So my wife is doesn't really care that much about cars, and when we had to buy a new car, all my rational thinking, right, would say that I shouldn't buy an expensive car, right? All my rational thinking will say that, because you may as well put that money in investments, and you may as well do all those things, right? But that is the one time that I let my gut take over, because I knew that the satisfaction that I will get out of buying that car that I've wanted for a long time is, I'm going to get a great amount of satisfaction. And that's what we mean by, you need to mix your rational thinking with your kind of gut feeling. But if I keep doing that for everything, if I go with my gut around that, right, or if I just go around how I feel, I'm going to ruin my life, right? And of course, again, you need to remember that when I bought, say, a car which is a very quite an expensive car, it also came from a space of rational, because I can afford that car, so I bought it. So I wouldn't make the mistake. The car that I bought 3 years back, I loved that car even 10 years back, but back then I didn't have the money to buy that car, right? So I didn't take that decision then, right? When I had to buy a car, then I bought a car according to what I could afford, but still I could have probably even back then bought a cheaper car. But somewhere I, analyzed the entire situation, but I also asked my gut, because I use that car every day. What do I want to go in the parking lot and see? And what do I want to drive? Because I spend so much time in that car, right? So it's not always about just using your kind of rational mind and coming up to it. But if you want to start taking good decisions, you need to consider all these options, right? Do I go in for a leased car? Do I go in for a new car? Do I go in for no car? Or do I go in for a used car? Think of all these things. Then within that, when you think of a new car, think of all the options that are going to come in that, right? Consider and study all those options which are there. And of course, like we said, you need to keep your priorities in mind, which is something that we'll discuss as we go. What are your priorities as far as a car is concerned? And what does that mean? You could say, my priorities as I think about them, right, are ensuring that I have a car that gives me great mileage. A car that gives me great safety is something that I want. This is my number one priority, is mileage. Maybe you'll say number two priority is safety. You could say number three priority is the style, how that car looks and feels. Number four, you could say, is the space. So this is what you need to do. If you want to take a good decision, you need to know what your priorities are around that decision that you're making, right? And then you need to analyze this. And people that are think about this even more, give it even more weightage. Right now, I'll tell you how irrational or how gut based my decision was. For me, the most important thing when it comes to the car is how the car looks. Right now, is that the right way to think about it? Absolutely not. But that's what I really love, because since my childhood I love cars, right? So that's the one thing that I go in for. And for you, it could be somebody else. But I'm clear that this style, brand, whatever it is, it's something which is very, very important to me. And my decision making on cars is almost kind of based on that. Of course, now when I'm buying a second car, my priority changes. There, my biggest one is space, right? Because that's something which is important to me for my second, third car, right? So that's something which is important to me there. So this is what priorities means, and this is what generating and coming up with different options means, right? Not just jumping to the option of saying, okay, I'll buy a new car, right? Think of all these alternatives that are there before you take that decision, and the more you generate options, the better your decision making. So this is another big tip that I would make a note of, right? Which is, we always have options, but spend a lot of time trying to generate as many options as you can around that issue. And the process of generating those options is the process of you thinking that issue through, right? Then of course the next thing that you do is weigh the costs and benefits of each one of those options that you have, right? And costs and benefits is nothing but the advantages, disadvantages, the pros and cons of that particular thing. And more often than not, if it's a very important decision, try to make a physical written list of the pros and cons and kind of keep that in front of you, because that is really going to help you. That writing it kind of always adds that additional weightage to that, right? So that is something which is important. By weighing the pros and cons related to it, you're more likely to feel that you're in control of your decision, right? That's what you're likely to feel. For each decision that you make, assess the costs and benefits and see how your decisions may impact you financially, professionally, emotionally, and physically, right? So depending on what it is, think how that kind of decision is going to impact you. But good decision making, okay, in a way, if you think about it, very simple, right? Beside the thing that I told you, if you want to take good decisions, you need to know what is the end objective that I'm trying to meet through this particular decision. Okay, what are my priorities that are important? Then once you know, okay, these are the priorities that I have, this is the objective that I'm trying to fulfill, right? Now, what do I mean by objective? If you're buying a house, the objective in a way that you're the final objective that you're trying to achieve is to have a lifestyle, and a life in a way, because the house is so important, has such an important role on your lifestyle, is to have a lifestyle and a life which is comfortable, pleasing, convenient to you and your family members, right? That is the final objective that you're trying to meet, if you think about it, right? That's why you're buying a house, to meet that final objective of having that. So always think, okay, what's that final objective that I'm trying to meet through this decision that I am trying to take, right? So if as a businessman, if I'm taking a decision whether to start a new product or service, right? Why am I making that decision of starting a new product or service? And the eventual kind of the reason why I'm taking that decision is kind of very simply to ensure that my company is making probably larger revenues or larger profits, and better for the shareholders in a way, right? So that is the eventual thing that I'm trying to achieve by starting this product, service. Or it could be something else for that matter, right? It could be, okay, the reason why I'm starting this thing is to fill a gap in this portfolio that we have in terms of products that will help my other products sell better, which will lead again to that bottom line, top line, right? So be clear on that final objective that you're trying to achieve. Then be clear on what your priorities are when it comes to this thing. Again, if you're buying a house, think of all the things involved in that decision making of the house. What are all your priorities there? And think of it, you could say the priority is to have a really spacious house. That is one of the priorities. Your priority could be to have a house which is very close to your office, and then you could know that, okay, maybe I can compromise slightly on the space, but this is my biggest priority, right? That it's close to my workplace, or it's centrally located. And then according to that, you're going to have to make your compromises when it comes to different areas. Then once you're clear on what your objective is, once you're clear on what your priorities around that decision are, then you come to saying, okay, now let me evaluate and generate alternatives and options, right? So that's what's going to help you. And then you try to generate enough of alternatives and options around that thing, and for which you need to do the point number one of, you need to collect information connected to it, right? You're not going to be able to decide on where and which house to buy properly if you don't have the information on what are the buildings, what are the structures, what is it available in that probably area that you want it, right? You need to have that information. If you don't do the right research, don't talk to the right people, you're not going to have the information. Therefore, you're not going to have the alternatives. Therefore, you're not going to be able to take that perfect decision. Can you have the perfect information? No, you can't always know every apartment that is available, say in a certain area where you want to buy a house. You're not going to have the perfect information, but remember that it needs to be good enough information, right? That you have. And that's where the whole information piece comes in. And once you have those alternatives, then you need to be able to say, okay, now what are the advantages, disadvantages? And through that, you need to be able to weigh them. And there's no perfect way to weigh them, right? As well. And then you need to say, okay, these are the advantages and disadvantages when it comes to this. And then, like, let's just take a house, right? So you probably shortlist it to two houses and you say, okay, these are the pros and cons. और फिर अपनी दिल की भी सुनो, right? After you've decided that between these two options, now which one do I really like, right? Or फिर अपनी दिल की सुनो यार. And that's exactly what I tend to do, and most people that take good decisions tend to do, right? When I in Bombay, we a few years, 3 years back, we kind of rented out a new house. And there were two options that we shortlisted, and one option was almost 30% cheaper than the other. But in the end we went for the expensive option because we were like, you know what, this is the option that we need to go in for, right? Because although, and of course we shortlisted two places after seeing lots of places, so it's not like we didn't check all our options out. We checked all our, but between these two we wanted, this one is rationally this makes more sense in terms of weighing the pros and cons. But my heart is telling me, my gut is telling me this, and we went for that option in the end. So we used both. We used the rational method, and then we also said, what is our heart telling us, what is our kind of thing. And then we went for, and that turned out to be a kind of fantastic decision. We thank ourselves every day for taking that decision and spending that whatever 25% more than what we would have there, right? Because it gives us kind of happiness every day that we're in that house. It leads to our overall well-being, and of course it costs a little more, and so we compromise on something else that we could have used that money to, but it is a good enough compromise for us, right? So that's what this weigh the costs and benefits means. Now, focus on the highest priorities first. We discussed this. When making a decision, consider ranking your priorities from high to low. Understand what matters most to you in that situation, and learn to prioritize what can help you in the long run, right? So this is something that we discussed. Plan for possible problems, unfavorable outcomes. Have a contingency plan in mind. Plan for the worst case scenario in case your decisions go wrong. Being prepared for the possible problems or issues that could arise will make you less stressed about the decision making process. You will feel more confident when things don't go as planned, right? So this is again a very kind of good steps where I'm taking a certain decision, but even this decision that I'm taking has these possible pitfalls, has these possible problems, because there's no such thing as a perfect decision in a way, right? So you could say, okay, but now I'm going to be more prepared for this thing, and because I'm more prepared for this thing, it's not going to kind of stress me out that much in a way, right? Now the third point is seek support and advice. Okay, that's something that you need to do. Talk with, we discussed this earlier, talk with trusted friends, family, or experts on that matter. Consider seeking out experts or people who can provide sound advice. Trusted friends and family who know you and your situation well may be able to lend helpful advice, right? So when you go to advise for somebody, what's the criteria you need to keep in mind? First criteria needs to be, are they well meaning, or do they intend well for you? That's a very very good important criteria to keep in mind when you're going to advise for something. Are they well meaning people? Do they mean well for you? So more often than not, in most cases, somebody like your parents, right, will often tick mark this one, right? Because they often mean, almost 99, they mean well for you. They really want you to take the right decision. So that's why they are often our go-to people. But that's not enough, right? The second thing that you need to look at when you're going to advise for somebody in a way is, do they know enough, right? Do they have enough knowledge, information? They may not even be experts in certain business things. You may kind of consult experts, but do they know enough about those decisions? Most today people know everything that Virat Kohli and Dhoni and Narendra Modi need to do. All that knowledge we have. खुद के life में कुछ नहीं कर सकते, पर expert बाकी सब चीजों में expert होते हैं. कोरोना, कोविड, उस पे कौन सा वैक्सीन लेना, सब पे एक्सपर्ट है आजकल लोग. थोड़ा बहुत व्हाट्सएप पे पढ़ के ना, तो बहुत एक्सपर्टीज है लोगों के पास, right? But are there people that are really kind of know about those issues, right? Deeply do they know about it? And third, their own history of decision making around that subject, right? Do they have a history of taking sound good decisions? What space they are in currently? And sure, a lot of times wrong decisions can you know help you give another person advice. There's no right there's and often the reason why elders give good advice often is because they have taken a lot of wrong decisions themselves, but that also tends to them being very fearful and talking from their fears and mistakes and leading you in that direction. And that's why in the end, once you're an adult, all your decisions must be your own, right? It cannot be just what somebody else said, right? They have to be your own when you analyze your situation. क्योंकि आपके जो दिल में है, वो कौन जानेगा? वो तो आपको ही जानना है. You need to know that what is it that your heart is telling you. Nobody can tell you that, right? What is it that your heart is telling you about stuff, right? So this is just kind of some criteria to keep in mind. As stakeholders you've trusted in the past who have been through similar situations or are known to be clear headed in their thinking in situations such as major financial decisions, medical issues, or legal matters, is highly recommended to consult an expert fine professional that can give you unbiased opinion on that situation, right? Very often when somebody is, the one question that we don't ask enough is why, right? So when a person says anything, this is a good question to ask them, saying, why are you saying what you're saying? Can you tell me 2 or 3 reasons why you're telling me what you're saying, right? So the minute you ask yourself or you ask somebody else and actually ask them to list down 2 or 3 reasons why they're saying a certain thing to you, then you can analyze what they're saying a lot better and see what to take or what not to take, right? So we don't ask why, kyun, आप ये क्यों बोल रहे हो? Why are you saying this? We don't analyze this as often as we should, right? Then this is distance yourself from the situation if required. If you are feeling overwhelmed, burdened by hard days, distance yourself, take some time off, engage your, this is very important, right? Certain, it's just important for you to distance yourself by actually saying, pause, let me pause this, let me do something else and then think about this again, right? So don't take a distance, just distance it by doing some other activity, and once your mind is clearer you will be more prepared to take those kind of tough decisions. Right now we're going to end with this: biases that affect decision making. Now if you want to take, like I've discussed this sometime in the past, where I've said the one book that I think is the most important book is a book called Art of Thinking Clearly, right, by Rob Dubelli. It's a book that I've gifted to at least 75 people, at least, right? And it's a wonderful book. It's cost 250, $300, and it talks about, I think, 99 odd biases or flaws that we have in our thinking, right? One of the kind of um, taglines of that book is better decisions, better life, right? So that's what the book is, right? So a lot of these biases or mistakes that we make while thinking are well documented there. I would recommend that book to like everybody that is on this class today. But let me kind of take you through a few common biases. We don't have time for me to take you into great detail when it comes to this thing, right? So confidence bias is decision maker is overconfident in their experience, opinion, or is blinded by past success, right? Becomes careless, oversimplifies the situation, misses key information, thus leading to risky outcomes, right? So this is something which is very, very important. Um, so you've seen this happen to so many people, right? At all ages you see this happening with, somebody had a certain amount of success, and the minute that success happens, that's what we call it, right? It starts going to their head. They start getting arrogant, they start getting blinded by that that success, and and then they start taking wrong decisions. So who, I think that was Peter Drucker that says, he said the enemy to today's success is yesterday's success. He said nobody did anything of consequence after winning a Nobel Prize, right? So that's one of the sayings that he had. He's like, the enemy of today's success is yesterday's success. Nobody did anything of any consequence after winning a Nobel Prize, right? And that's what you need to take cognizant of. Be very, very aware, especially when you succeed, when something goes right for you, to say, okay, I'm not going to be blinded by this, and I'm not going to be more careless, because what got me to a certain place was possibly good decision making. Now if I don't do that, then I will go down the drain. And that's why you see so many of these success stories that keep going down, because they don't follow that thing. They let it get to their head and they become too arrogant, right? So you have so many cases. I think we have a lot of bankers on this particular webinar or this call, and you've seen cases like a Chanda Kochar, right? It's such a disgrace to see somebody that was touted as one of the most important banking figures, most important women figures, to make it right to the top of one of India's biggest banks. And I'm sure she worked very, very hard, and built such a reputation over 40 years, and then tarnished it because by letting that success go to their head and taking wrong, immoral, unethical decisions after that, right? They're just wrong, immoral decisions, and you let kind of success make you arrogant and corrupt and unethical, right? So don't let that confidence bias get to you if something has gone well in your life. Right now, this one, again, this is something that I've said. If you want to know, if you want to improve, the biggest flaw of thinking, the biggest flaw of decision making, the biggest bias is this thing. And don't just go with this explanation that I've given you. Read up on this further, because if you can ace this one thing in your life, if you can stop making this one mistake of thinking in your life, it will benefit you so much, ladies and gentlemen. So after this class, just read up on confirmation bias a little more. I practically tell people that if you don't know what confirmation bias is, you shouldn't be allowed to vote. You shouldn't be allowed to get married. You shouldn't be allowed to do anything if you don't know what confirmation bias means, right? Now, what does it mean? We believe that we believe what we want to believe by favoring information and decisions that confirms pre-existing beliefs and or misconceptions or preconceptions, right? What does this mean? Very, very simply, right? So I'll give you a political example, and you must have seen this because you have friends, family members that keep doing this, right? Let's assume that you are a supporter of Modi or Kejriwal, or it doesn't matter, Rahul Gandhi, whoever it is, right? Whoever you say you support. Now, your pre-existing belief is that Modi is a great leader, or whoever. I'm not just taking Modi, it could be anyone, right? So then all new information that you look for, all new information that you look for is positive information to confirm your existing bias that Modi is a good leader. Or Kejriwal is a good, or Rahul Gandhi, right? I repeat this thing. Okay, so you say you have a natural liking, okay, or a natural, this is often an intuitive liking for something or a dislike for something, right? So say you intuitively like this Modi, right? Then you tend to find or pay attention to all new information that that's why it's called confirmation bias, that confirms your bias towards this person, right? So then what you do, every forward that comes which is pro Modi, you think, Arey, this is amazing evidence of Modi being a great leader, amazing evidence. And then you forward it to 100 people, right? That same message. And if you see any message that is against Modi, you say, Arey, this is a conspiracy. This is a conspiracy. This is fake news. This is for, and often it is fake news, and often it is all those cases. But any new information that is not in confirmation to your existing bias, you tend to not look at that and think of that as wrong or bias or whatever. And any new information that comes that confirms your existing bias, you think that is amazing and that's true, all those things, right? And this is the number one flaw that is there in our thinking. And you know why this is a number one flaw in our thinking? Because more often than not, and you should, if you want more details about how to take better decisions, how to think better, there's a book which I'm reading currently, which is called Thinking Fast and Slow, right? Which says that more often than not, human beings jump to conclusions or take decisions based on their instinct or gut feeling, right? So they take a decision quickly in their mind that this is good, right? And then once they've taken that kind of, that's their existing belief, then they just keep looking for all new information that confirms their existing intuitive conclusion that they've come up with, right? So for example, if you and your wife are deciding like which school to send your kid to, and your wife goes to a certain school, and the minute she goes there, she just loves that school, the way it looks, right? And that kind of fascinates her. So in her mind, she's already taken that decision. "Arey, mere bachche ko mujhe is school mein bhejna hai. I want to send my kid to that school." Then all new information she'll try to look at from the point of view is what are all the good reasons why this school is amazing, and she'll tend to not look at any of the reasons why that school is bad. She'll just disregard that, because instinctively the minute she saw that building, she's like, "Oh, this is amazing," right? And I want to send. So all new information will be in positive connected to that, because she's already in her mind without realizing or not taken that decision. So she looks at all decision, and this becomes a very bad way of taking decisions, because we're just confirming our existing beliefs and preconceptions on a certain issue. And if you want to start thinking better, right, and this is age old information, this is what Aristotle said many years back. He says, if you want to become a better thinker, there's a very simple, and in turn a better thinker will make you a better decision maker. There's a very simple way in which you look at stuff, right? He says you start with a certain hypothesis and then try to prove it wrong, right? You start with a certain hypothesis and then try to prove that hypothesis wrong, which will help you evaluate nothing but the pros and cons as far as everything, right? Which is comes back to the same thing. So you start with a certain hypothesis that you have and try to think that you're wrong, right? So I'll just give you an exercise, because this is a hot issue, right? So if you intuitively feel, right, and more often than not, this is the other thing, which is anchoring bias. This is, so if you like Modi, then you will think that all the decisions that he takes are right. And you would have seen that, right? Stupid people keep anything that he says, or, and if you hate Modi, you'll say all the decisions that he's taking are wrong. And if you're a rational thinker and a good decision maker, you will know that neither of this is true, right? He's a human being like anybody else. So a lot of decisions that he will take will be right. A lot of decisions that he'll take will not be the best decisions, or will be wrong decisions, right? He's also the prime minister. Nobody is born being a prime minister, right and wrong. And if you're good, you will say, okay, whatever, I will study each one of these things and then I will decide whether it's right or wrong. But people don't think like that. Once they support Modi, it's like everything that he says is right, or everything that he does is wrong. And that's again a bad way of thinking, and biases. These are the biases that we have in decision making, right? That we need to be very careful of, right? I hope confirmation bias, I hope you understood. I think I've tried to explain it in as simple words, but please read up on it more. Number one flaw in thinking and number one mistake in thinking, right? Now, anchoring bias, being influenced by information that is already known or that is first shown to us, right? So that becomes a big thing, that anything that you see first, that tends to influence your decision a lot more. We end up making decisions only based on those pieces of information, thus overlooking other possibilities. So that's what anchoring is. Don't get influenced by only the thing that you see first, because that has such a big impact on you. Please generate more options so that your decision making is more sound, right? Now, social proof or conformity bias means taking a certain decision because everyone around us is, even if against our independent personal judgment, right? So this is what so many of us do all the time, and I wish I could get into more details on this thing, right? So when we say take informed decisions, we say take independent decisions, right? And we tend to take decisions that is sab wahi bhej rahe to hum bhi wahi bhejte hain. We get influenced by that so easily. Everybody is going for a holiday, even we'll go for that. Everybody is doing this, so even we'll do it, right? So this social proof is a big one that can lead us to taking wrong decisions, right? Now, effort bias bias means falling in love with a solution because you put a lot of effort into it, right? Now, just because you put a lot of effort into it doesn't mean that you need to kind of fall in love with that solution or continue with that solution, even that is wrong. You may have put a lot of effort into something, but it still may not be that right thing to do, and then you need to know when to pull the plug on something like that, right? So don't just go because you put a lot of effort into it. Authority bias means taking decisions based on how a figure of authority thought about something, and this we often do in the case of our parental figures, or somebody that we look at as an authority figure. Just because they say or did something, we tend to do the same thing without giving it much thought. And liking bias, taking a decision because it comes from a person that we like, right? And then that's another bias. And these biases are a few of many biases that we have and many flaws of thinking. I would recommend that you read The Art of Thinking Clearly, and I would recommend, especially today, you go and research more on confirmation bias. And if you can get rid of that, you'll be good. And another thought to kind of take back is to say a good, like what Aristotle say, if you want to be a good thinker, start with a certain hypothesis, start with a certain thought, and then try to prove why you're wrong. It could work with anything, right? You may think your boss is the biggest idiot, right? That may be the hypothesis you start with. And then you say, okay, this is the hypothesis I'm starting with. Now, why am I wrong about what I'm thinking? And if you say, oh, there's no reason why I am wrong, that means you're not thinking enough, right? You're not thinking about it, because there'll be many reasons why your boss is not an idiot. So think about both sides of everything. So if you're going to say, okay, this is the school that I want to send my child to, right? Then you need to say, okay, why am I wrong about this decision, and try to analyze all the reasons why you could be wrong about that being the best school, right? So essentially, good thinking is where it's like having two people in your head. One guy is debating for the pros and one guy is debating for the cons. One guy is debating inside your brain for that thing and one guy is debating against that thing, right? So you have, in a way, the government and the opposition both in your head debating a certain issue, and that debating that certain thing is what gives you more clarity. And then in the end you have to take a decision, right? No decision is going to be perfect, but after weighing those things you'll have to take a decision, right? Okay, we're done. Long class today, 90 minutes. What are you going to start implementing, ladies and gentlemen? Today, I'm going to wait for a lot of y'all to give answers. Please share your answers in the chat box. Share 3 points and write all 3 points together and put in the chat box. I want to see today what are the things that you're going to take away from this very important subject that we've discussed, right? So come on, come on, come on. Put your answers in the chat box. Okay, Ganesh, good, some good points. I want everybody to put in their points, please. I'm not going to start the assessment today till I have at least 10 of y'all putting your points down in the chat box. I want to see that y'all are actually writing stuff down, actually have some takeaways, right, around this. Okay, let's look at a few answers here. Okay. Suresh is saying we'll go for informed decisions, unbiased, and taking all pros and cons into consideration. Rakesh says taking decisions without any bias. Look for maximum options and knowledge before taking decisions. Taking decisions after analyzing all relevant facts, taking pros, account pros and cons, making decisions without biases. Thomas says avoid biases, especially confirmation bias. Great. Think of the short term and long term effects, right? So just since a lot of y'all are talk about biases, just if you read that book Thinking Fast and Slow, that's one of the things that it talks about, right? There's something called system one thinking, system two thinking. It's a very nice book. And you know, a lot of y'all, even if you don't go to the book, a good practice to do is go to YouTube and say summary of Thinking Fast and Slow, right? And there'll be some 10-minute summary on that somebody will summarize that book for you, and that can teach you a lot in itself. Or there can be a written summary around that book. So at least read the summary if you don't have if you don't have time to read the entire book, right? So the thing to remember is that the very often the mind jumps to making an instinctive decision about something, or the mind has a immediate kind of intuitive preference for a certain thing, right? And then what happens is the minute we have that preference, we try to look for all things that support that immediate intuitive preference that we've had, right? We don't do rational thinking at all, and then we think we're doing rational thinking, but what happens is because we have that bias already, we're looking for all the reasons that confirm that bias, or all the information that confirm that bias, right? Which is there. And that's why you see kind of so many, if you've seen so many phonetics, right? On your WhatsApp groups, you see so many of these phonetics which are there because they receive new information that are they confirm their existing positive or negative biases of a certain thing, and then they forward those things with all the josh, right? Because they feel, see, I have the information which supports what I'm trying to say, and it's all rubbish information, right? It's all confirmation bias. They do no check on it, anything, but they're just happy. And today, everybody, if you talk to anybody about anything over a dinner table, they say, but I have all the facts. They say, I have all the information. That's because they have all the information that supports their initial preference on a certain subject, right? They're not really thinking about it rationally. They're not thinking about it without a bias, right? And that's the reason, that's the way to go about thinking, right? If you're pro Kejriwal, or if you like a certain person, you need to think, okay, these are all the things that he does well, these are all the things that he doesn't do well, right? So you need to think, okay, why is this person wrong, or what is wrong about this, what is the other point of view on this, right? If you're pro Modi, try to read anti Modi. If you're anti Modi, try to read pro Modi. If you're pro Kejriwal, try to read anti Kejriwal. If you're anti Kejriwal, read pro Kejriwal, right? So that will ensure that your thoughts are more mature thoughts towards a certain issue on anything, right? If you think your boss is an idiot, think, why is he not an idiot? If you think why he's not an idiot, often you think, okay, what are the things that he does? So again, it's a more kind of balanced approach to everything that you'll take, and that balance is what will help you take better decisions, right? Take Natrajan says take quality decisions based on proper reasoning, and then based on intuitions alone, to take decisions at the right time without dealing, have full information before taking a decision. I wouldn't ever say full information, right? Have enough information, because there's never full information, and that can lead to us being indecisive. But have enough information that will give you confidence to take it, right? Good. So thank you very much. I think there's a lot of kind of takeaway that is there. Divya, or whoever is in charge, can you please share the assessment to all our panelists and attendees? There's your assessment for today's session. Please answer that assessment immediately to get your certificate, and then we will move on to the feedback after you're done with that. I'm not okay. I'll trigger it in 2 minutes so that you get time to do the assessment. Okay, I'm going to trigger the feedback. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please give me your feedback on this session that we've just attended. Launch poll. Okay, launch poll, launching poll, launching poll. Yes, launch poll. I have launched the poll. Please give me your feedback, ladies and gentlemen. Please give us your feedback, ladies and gentlemen. Natrajan, I don't know why you're not getting the feedback link. I've shared the poll already. Just check on your system. I have no idea. Everybody else is already giving their feedback, my friend. No, it's not in the chat box, Trajan. It's just I don't know where it comes for people, but I just launch it and it's there on their Zoom. So I'm not sure whether it's on the chat box or not, but you will find it for sure. Yes, Renuka, I agree with you. I am in full agreement with you that this should be, and like I mentioned right at the start, right? There's so much. I am a big student of this subject of how to think better, how to take better decisions. I'm like I mentioned at the start, I consider myself a student of it. I don't still think I'm an expert at teaching it enough, and the only way I'll become an expert is by practicing more and teaching this subject more. But you're right when you say that this is something that should be taught at the school level, college level. Even if they scrap half our portion and just teach us about this through the years, it's going to be a lot better than teaching so many other subjects that we never end up using. Because if you actually think of it, life is nothing but the decisions that you're going to make. And if we keep making bad, wrong decisions all the time, right, which are not beneficial to us and our loved ones, then that's, you're going to have a miserable life, right? There is absolutely no two ways about the fact that you're going to have a miserable life. Anybody that you see who has a miserable life today, you can, there's luck and there's bad decisions. These are the two factors. And sure, luck is something that plays a big part, right? If you have some real unlucky event that happened with you, but in most cases people suffer more from bad decisions than from bad luck. No, wouldn't you agree? Most people suffer from bad decisions than bad luck, because when you live in a, you know all of us, on this, we live in a free country, in a way, right? We live in a free country, so you're always free to take your decisions after you're an adult on anything. Why don't we take them? More often than not, we don't take them because we're scared, right? Or we're too busy thinking about what others will think, or where, just a lot of these things, we don't take decisions, or we take wrong decisions. There's a lot of these factors, and the minute we kind of eliminate those things and really start thinking well, it's amazing, right? Renuka, the other thing that I'd like to share with you and everybody else is something that I've said in the past. I said it at the start of this session. To be successful, it's more important that you're not stupid than you're smart, right? So more often than not, you don't need to be smart, just don't be stupid. What is stupid? Stupid is nothing but taking wrong decisions, right? At all points of time, or consistently taking wrong decisions will lead to somebody being called stupid or being stupid, right? Consistently taking wrong or bad decisions, is that right? Uh, yeah. Now, what else can I say about this? These things. I'd like to share one quote. I think I've shared this quote before with my friends on the club, right? There's a very nice quote that says, success is nothing but a few simple disciplines practiced every day. Failure is nothing but a few errors of judgment repeated every day. Errors of judgment means nothing but bad decisions. It is the cumulative weight of these daily decisions, or these daily errors of judgment, that make or break a career, right? So disciplines also is a decision that you're making. Errors of judgment also is a decision that you're making. It's the cumulative weight of these disciplines, which are good decisions, or the errors of judgment that are bad decisions, that will make or break your life and career, right? So much importance to this subject. My god, and I hope all of y'all have taken this subject very seriously. Okay. Tomorrow, on the lovely Valentine's Day, we have a Sunday motivational series where you are not seeing my face tomorrow. I don't know whose face you're seeing, but certainly not my face. Essentials of conflict management is what is there next week. And then I am coming back, I'm sure, to do the secret of getting a great appraisal rating. I don't know. I think this is a repeat topic. I'm not sure about it. But anyway, I'm going to be there to talk about how to get a great appraisal rating. You know where to follow us on social media. This is where you need to follow us, ladies and gentlemen. We put up some good stuff. And yes, thank you very much for those of you all who want to leave. Today has been a very long session. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, this is the right time to ask them. If you don't have questions, you can go and enjoy the rest of your Saturday. I am in my beautiful hometown of Goa, so I'm going to be enjoying I have lots planned for this Saturday evening, that I have to do. So I'm going to enjoy myself after this class is over as well. But you go enjoy yourself as well. It's always a pleasure dealing with all of you all. It's always a pleasure having you all. Thank you, Suresh. Thank you, Ganesh, for your kind words. They really motivate me, and I really feel like I keep feeling like coming back and doing these sessions because of your great feedback and your kind words, right? Today we've had 18 people, I think, giving feedback, and 17 of them have given 5. How nice am I feeling because of that? I'm feeling very good, right? Yes. So I will wait for a couple of minutes for some questions. If there are no questions, I'm going to bid you all goodbye and enjoy myself. Thank you, Bindu. Thank you. Bindu, good question. How to take a wise decision considering all the factors but quickly, right? My first, it's a very good question that you're asking, right? If you want to be a good decision maker, the first thing is your ability in a way to distinguish between what are important things and what are not that important things, right? So that's the thing that you need to be able to distinguish first between, right? And what is important, you need to give it importance while taking the decision, and what is not important, it's okay if you take quicker decisions, right? And very often this is what people mix up in a way. Okay, should I go for coffee or not today, right? A small decision, don't need to spend that much time with you can go more with your intuition of whether you feel go for it, right? So smaller things you can take decisions much more quicker, much more intuitively without putting that much thought into it. You can go with your intuition. Know that difference between the two, right? Because if it's an important decision, you have to devote the mental energy and thought process in order to do it, right? I'll share another thing with you which could be quite useful to you, right? So this is something that Barack Obama would say. He would say that, only once he wore a different kind of suit. He would say, I would wear either a black suit, a gray suit, or a blue suit, navy blue suit. These are the only three suits, because in the morning when I wake up, I don't want to think about what do I need to wear. So these are the four type of things. I just pick, one day I'll wear black, next day gray, blue, then next day this, right? This is the order in which I kind of change my clothes, because I don't want to give it that much thought, because it's not that important to me. Of course it's important that it looks good, all of them will look good, and I will do that thing, because I don't want to devote my mental energy to taking that decision, because all decisions takes a certain amount of mental energy away from you, right? And it's certain amount of strain and mental effort that you need to take, right? So how do you take wise decisions considering all factors quickly? No, I think a better kind of solution to it is to say, know the important decisions and know what is not that important. That's the first thing that you need to think of. And nobody can help you with that. I think a little bit of common sense is required there, saying this is important because this will have more long lasting consequences in my life, right? That's a good way to think about what is an important decision. This is an important decision because it's going to have more long lasting consequences in my life. Buying a car is an important decision because you're going to use it for 5 years. Getting married is an important decision because you're hopefully going to do it for a long time. Having a kid is an important decision to take because you can't put it back in somebody's stomach, right? You're stuck with it in a so a lot of these decisions are very important decisions that have to be well thought through. Taking up a certain job is an, what job to take up is a very important decision, because then you're going to do it. It's going to have consequences in your life for a long period of time. A lot of your time is going to go in that particular decision that you make, and a lot of your time is a lot of your life is going to go. A lot of those decisions need to be well thought through, right? A lot of the decisions on a day to day basis that you take revolve around what is called having the discipline, and having the, in a sense, the emotional fortitude or the emotional strength to take a certain decision, or to take a decision to stick by it, right? So it takes a lot of that emotional power for you to be able to do it, because you know that it's right, but then you need to take that effort to stick to it, so that in a way it becomes your new habit, right? Yeah, so you have to, in a way, more than prioritize, I think the right word would be know the importance between an important decision and a smaller decision that you would take. Important decision, give it the time and effort that is required. The smaller decisions that don't have that much of a consequence in your life, right, it's okay, you can go more by intuition, what people say, a lot of those things that you can do, right? So that would be my answer to it. It's a good question though. Yeah, realizing that we have taken a wrong decision in a hurry will be better to correct it quickly. See, first of all, Raju, that's, it's more a comment than a question, but um, a lot of us will end up taking wrong decisions because we're taking decisions all the time in our life every day, like I said, since you wake up in the morning, you're busy taking decisions from the time the alarm rings, right? Are you going to wake up? Are you going to snooze? Right? What are you going to do when you wake up in the morning? If you decide to go for a walk, are you going to go for it or not? Right? Decisions happen literally the minute you start waking up. So by default, if you're taking so many decisions in your day, you are going to end up taking a lot of wrong ones. Now, when you take wrong ones, you need to be humble enough, you need to have a small ego to realize that you've taken a wrong decision and to quickly rectify it. Because a lot of people, what happens is they know that they've taken a wrong decision, but because their egos are so big, they're not humble enough, they're not even ready to accept it themselves, let it be to accept it to somebody else. They're not even ready to accept it to themselves that the decision has been wrong because of their egos, because they're not humble, right? And then in turn, they're not ready to accept it to other people that their decisions were wrong, right? So I keep telling people, if you want to live a good personal and professional life, right, a successful professional life and a fairly peaceful overall and personal life, it's very important to get into the habit of saying, I was wrong. I made a mistake, right? It's good to get in the habit of saying your idea was better than mine, right? That I made a mistake. I was wrong. I should have done this differently. Get into the habit of saying this very often and get habitual to accepting your mistakes. Because the minute you do that, then you can quickly recover from the wrong decisions that you take and take right decisions, right? So that's what you need to do. Yeah, and that's something that can help a lot. But that for that you need to be humble. For that you need to have a controlled ego, right? So yeah, that's my comment on your comment. Yes, thank you, Raju. Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you had a good class. I will see you soon, my friends. Bye bye. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, please. Saturday. Bye, and enjoy your Valentine's Day.